Find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Christ.
May the words of my mouth and the meditations of my heart be acceptable in your sight, gracious God. Please be seated. At the beginning of this gospel passage today, it seems that Jesus is telling us that we just don't get it. We don't dance for the joyful flute playing. We don't cry for the sad song. He says that we are quick to criticize our prophets, calling them names for either not eating and drinking or for eating and drinking. We don't seem to be getting it at all. Then he goes on to thank God for hiding things from the wise and intelligent and revealing them to infants. What is going on here? We are brought up to think that an education will protect us from poverty and create for us a good and decent life. And indeed, the statistics show that for the most part, this is true. Men and women with degrees earn more money, are more likely to have a home and stability. It's a good thing to achieve these things and to spend our time building a life of purpose and worth. This is the way to become successful members of society. Along the way, we figure out what we like and what we don't like, who we want to spend time with, and who is outside of our circle. We become masters of our own opinions. We decide what is good and what is bad. Success is good and failure is bad. We become walking opinions on most everything, don't we? We hold fast to our particular group of people. We are Americans. They are foreigners. We are always in the right, and they are mostly wrong. Sometimes on this journey of good, bad, right, wrong thinking, something happens that doesn't go our way. Even though we're doing everything by the book, something breaks our sense of control and security that we are so diligently working on. For some of us, that might be an illness or a death of a loved one or a divorce or the loss of a job. This can really knock us off our certainty of life on our terms, can't it? Richard Rohr, a Franciscan priest and a favorite author of many of us, has written a lot about something he calls the two halves of life. In the first half, we're busy building up our identities and our life structures. Then, for many, a stumbling block comes along that breaks down our sense of control or humbles us. And he suggests that these stumbling blocks are the door to transformation. With our self-reliance shaken up, we might turn to God for our support and comfort. The second half of life becomes our spiritual journey to an intimate and personal relationship with God. In the second half of life, Rohr says that we become free of our hold on our belief structures. We let go of our limited tribal thinking. We start to see all people as valuable and included in God's creation. Our right and wrong changes into both and. Our circle of inclusion widens. This is freeing, don't you think? One of my favorite professors at Claremont School of Theology is an Episcopal priest and a prolific author named Cheryl Kajawa Holbrook. In my very first semester of seminary, Cheryl told our class that the purpose of all religion was freedom. She said that deep spirituality brings about knowledge of real priorities. This brings us wholeness and an abiding sense of a relationship with God that transcends our cultural environment. This is the core of true, solid authenticity. When we are grounded in this deep spiritual relationship, she says, then we are resilient and free. When our minds are busy with liking and disliking, judgment and opinions, anger and resentment, it's hard to feel connected to God. When we are filled with our own stuff, there's hardly any room inside for God. Maybe it is rather by becoming childlike that we can be free of these thoughts so that wisdom might be revealed. Aren't infants free of all this stuff we wise are full of? Infants don't judge, they love. They are like little balls of love. Also, infants are dependent beings. They know that they need the love and attention of others to survive. Unlike us super independent, wise and intelligent people who think we can do everything on our own. This is clearly important to Jesus because a little later in Matthew's gospel, he will say, "Truly I say to you, unless you are converted and become like children, you will not enter the kingdom of heaven." How could we become more like infants or like children so that we might have wisdom revealed to us and enter the kingdom of heaven? Maybe we need to stop putting our whole sense of value on what goes on between our ears. Maybe we need to find a way to quiet all that mental anguish and non-stop brain chatter. We get so caught up in all the chatter in our heads that we don't have the gigabytes left over for God. This is what AA calls stinkin' thinkin'. We need to free ourselves from our accumulated intelligence, which does not serve this journey, and soften our hard hearts. How do you do that, you might ask? Well, one way is by humbling ourselves, which, as I said before, sometimes life does this for us. Sometimes the exact thing that seems so devastating is the thing that brings us to our knees and off our high horse. Some of the women in jail get this. Dominique, one of the very special women that I see regularly, said to me, "On the outside, I was in bondage. Now, ironically, on the inside, I have become free. She has used her stumbling block to turn humbly towards God. Now that she has all her control taken from her, she sees that on the outside, she was in bondage to her own will, trying so hard to make it all work. Now she's had to let it go, and she has only God to turn to. And in that, she has found the ultimate freedom. She is now accountable to God, not to the demands of the world. When I was at the beginning of this journey of mine, from a life of ambition and doing to a life given to God, I asked a monk at the Society of St. John the Evangelist in Cambridge, Massachusetts, what he missed most from the outside world. He answered me almost immediately, nothing. Because there is no other life that could bring me the freedom that I have in this monastery. I nodded and seemed to innately understand what he was saying, but really, what an upside-down thought. Monks don't have any freedom. They live on a tiny allowance. They don't get to make any plans without the prior's agreement. They don't get to decide what's for dinner. They can't travel. They eat and sleep at the exact same time every day. I mean, come on. Where's the freedom? But of course, I did understand. And now, years later, I understand on a deeper level. Giving your life to God and depending on God alone is maybe the only real freedom we can ever know. So what a nice idea for our Independence Day weekend. Freedom. What could we do today to gain greater freedom and become childlike? Could we give up our pride, our arrogance, our non-stop judging, our resentments, our clinging to control, our shame or guilt, our certainty? Let's be childlike with wonder at the greatness of the mystery of God, and awed like a child by the love that God has for us. And how about just allowing ourselves to lean into God and let ourselves be in a totally dependent relationship? Could this be freedom too? Could our relinquishing our self-will and handing the steering wheel over to God be the answer to our prayers? So what is going on here? Jesus gives us the answer in the end of this gospel passage. Come to me, all you who are weary and are carrying heavy burdens, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. Amen.